Hi, it's Ursula from ursula-smith.com, and I am back with another kind of what to do with this piece. So I'm going to try and intersperse these in and among my other experiments. These are different pieces that, for whatever reason, I wasn't crazy about, and so I tend to throw them in a pile and then try to see if I can salvage them at a later point. And so in this case, I used Yupo paper cutouts, and I brought some kind of acrylic medium over the top. It's been a while, so I don't remember which one it is. Based on the look of it, I'm gonna want to say it might be Texture Paste, the Distress, Tim Holtz Distress Texture Paste, I think. But I'm not sure. I do kind of like what's going on back here, but the rest of it is just kind of, I don't know. I just don't like it. So I've done this in another one, and a lot of these are probably going to end up being similar, where I'm just going to come over the top of it with other things, because that's pretty much, other than cutting it up, that's probably all you can do with these, right? So let's see. So I've got purples and deeper blues, it looks like, going on in the background. And then either the pink has picked up some of the background and colored, or I threw pink over the top and it was just kind of dried light. So I'm just trying to line this up. I really don't feel like adding the zig glue and going through that whole thing where I use the zig glue to kind of tack it down. So I'm going to try and just keep it, just put it down and hope it sits in that texture paste while I'm spraying. And then I'm going to bring some sprays over the top. So I have Seedless Preserves, which I feel like is going to not be, none of the Distress Oxides are super bright. That's the same color. So I'm trying to decide, maybe Wilted Violet. That might be pretty, or maybe a combination. Hey, let's live dangerously and use both. So I'm going to try and go over the top with the Distress Oxide first. And then if we don't like it, we can always try to oxidize it with some regular spray stains. Oh, so that is interesting. It's almost reddish in color. So that was the Seedless Preserves. And let's add some Wilted Violet. So it is, I suspect, what I was thinking, where that texture paste, that looks like it's covering a little bit better. The texture paste is kind of staying white. Let's see if I add some chipped. So this is regular spray stain, which is going to oxidize. So I may not like this, and I may try and bring in the actual oxide color of this, but let's try the spray stain and see if we can get a little bit more contrast going on. That might not be so bad. Okay, I might go crazy here and add a little, let's add some Kitsch Flamingo. Let's see what happens. Take that pink up a little bit. Okay, I think that's enough color. So, again, it won't dry on that Yupo paper. So let's see what I have here in the pile. Oh, I have another one of those gold colors. So let's, I want to pull up some of that. I'm just trying to find some scrap paper, which I don't have a lot sitting around. Nope, I don't want to wreck that. Okay, I'm going to pause and just go grab some scrap paper. Okay, I messed up the video, so I've cleaned all the background. I have transferred the U-boat paper cutouts onto this orangey looking background and forgot that the words would be reversed, but we'll cover that over with something later. And then the color did transfer mostly. So I'm covering it back up because I want to bring some more color over the top. And again, I'm trying not to tape this down. So we'll deal with whatever we get. And then my thinking was trying to punch up the orange. So I grabbed some Distress Spray Stain and Carved Pumpkin. And I'm going to go over the top. Oh, that's interesting. And so whatever I had stamped in the background is really coming through because of that oxidation, which I'm not sure I necessarily want. So this is the way that I usually do things. Distress Oxide, bring the Distress Spray Stain over the top, and then you get that oxidation so you can see kind of whatever's in the background. I don't necessarily think I want that to show through because it's kind of linear. I don't mind these swirls here. And again, that we can just cover over with something. So I think what I may do is now do the exact opposite and come back over with a Distress Oxide, actually maybe even in the same color, in the Carved Pumpkin. And I'll just kind of concentrate over the line part. Maybe the part where I want to cover it up. And that seems maybe too light, so maybe some abandoned coral might help. That might be enough to cover that up, at least those lines. And then, now of course we have more color on the U-boat paper cutout, but I'm going to call that the end. And so we did protect that purple color. So I'm going to go off and let this dry. We may have to do something else up there to camouflage that line work. But again, just like the other piece, let's go off and let this dry, and we'll evaluate when it's dry. And at that point, I will be back. Hi, I'm back, and both my pieces have dried. I'm actually liking this one more than this one, so I'm gonna put this to the side for now. And so one of the things I don't like about this is I was trying to get this a little bit deeper, the background, but I don't like the way that now the inside that was dark doesn't stand out as much because it's all kind of the same color. So, you know, at some point I kind of just give up and call it a loss and toss it. But I just did want to try one thing just to see if it would work. I could go in with paint, and I know I've done that before. I'm trying to find a better paintbrush. I don't like this paintbrush. Oh, here's one. So my thought here is maybe taking one of like a Dylusions. I could go in with Distress Oxide, but I've kind of done that before, and that's usually my go-to. So I'm thinking I want to try something else here to just go in and paint over that inside. It might be a little difficult, but I'm going to give it a shot before I just completely give up. So unfortunately, I would love to have the fuchsia in a glimmer, but I don't. So I'm kind of thinking what I might do is use a little bit of Distress Mica spray and some of the Dylusions. So Dylusions is just a little bit brighter color than the Distress line. So I'm thinking I might like that a little bit better. So I'm going to try and mix the two. And I'm just going to spray on my background, or on my work mat, some of the mica and then some of the Dylusions. And what I might do first is just try the straight Dylusions. I just think that's not going to be quite enough. And I'm just going to pick it up with a paintbrush and go in and paint it in. And I think underneath is Distress Oxide. So again, my fear is just bringing in something wet is going to just oxidize that color and make it even lighter, which might work, but it's not looking good. So that was kind of what I was afraid of. So I'm going to spend too much time doing the painting with this, just this color, because it really is looking like that's not going to do what I want it to do. I mean, it's changing the color, so maybe it will work. Looking through the camera, actually, it looks a little bit better than it does to my eye and kind of in real life. So, I mean, again, it's okay. I'm not loving it. And so I'm going to try, so let's try it two different ways. I'm going to try and just go over what I just did with the mica. And what I kind of was hoping was that the mica would add enough shimmer to make that stand out. Also seems to be bleeding into the background, so again, I'm not sure this is really going to work. This might end up being a toss-out. And this is one of those designs that it's not a two-part, so I don't have the leftover to kind of cover up the background. So unless I just want to obliterate everything, I could just spray and kind of start over from scratch, which might be the way that I end up having to go. So, I mean, maybe. I am thinking this may end up being a toss out. So I'm going to go off camera so you don't have to watch me paint. I'm going to paint in, let it dry, and then what I might do is just try and spray over the whole thing again and see if we can maybe do one more attempt. But right now I'm not loving this, but we'll see. So when this is all done, I will be back. Okay, I'm back, and I went through and painted in the mica and the fuchsia, and I mean, whatever, I don't love it. So before I toss it, I am going to try to just basically obliterate the whole thing with I think I'm going to do a lighter color in Distress Oxide. I'm looking for my worn lipstick. Oh, there it is. So I'm just going to spray over the entire thing. And then what I plan on doing is just covering it up again. The other thing I could do if I wanted, I could try spraying the back of this, getting it very wet. And because it's Yupo paper and it doesn't stick to it, I could then flip it over and try and float that color into the insets. I do have a video somewhere in my stash on doing that. But I'm not going to do that today. But that is an option if you want to give that a whirl. So I'm just going to spray over the whole thing with another color. And let that dry. Maybe I'll add a little bit of spun sugar too. Oh, and so yeah, so I forgot that I didn't let this completely dry. I just decided I didn't like it. And so the worn lipstick over the top of the wet is now oxidizing. So it is going to be a lighter color, which is interesting. So I'm going to go off. I'm wondering if I should pull in some other colors here because those weren't wet. I might do that. Let us try. I could go in with the purple again. Let's try Wilted Violet. And again, I could cover this to protect it. Here's my love. That is looking pretty muddy. Okay. Oh, this is a mess. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what it does. Let's snag that up. Let's snag that up. And that midsection, actually, I wonder if I have a Q-tip around. Do I have a Q-tip? Ooh. Yes, I do. So I'm just going to try and see if I can mop up some of that to leave that light. If there's any other. Don't know what's going on there. Okay. At least we have contrast. So I'm going to go off and let that dry and clean this all up. And then I'll come back in with the other piece that I was doing at the same time. That was kind of the reverse of this. So when that's all clean, I'll be back. Okay, so here's the other piece that has dried. So this was after we sprayed the first one, we flipped it over and got the Yupo paper was basically upside down with the ink that then transferred to this piece. And then I sprayed all around it with the orangey colors. So what I did was I also mopped up a lot of the colors and then kind of sprayed some more on top of a scrap piece of paper so that I had something that was kind of in the same ballpark of colors. And so a lot of times I do that as my cleanup step. And then when I come back to the card front, I have pieces that I can cut from if I want to cut a sentiment or an embellishment or something to that effect. So again, I don't love this line going across. I mean, now that it's dried, it's not terrible, but I still probably would rather cover it up. So one thought I had was just a simple, rather than, I do have cutting dies that, you know, are linear and kind of will make strips. Some look like they've been stitched, that sort of thing. But I was looking for something super simple and just basically cutting a strip, a dinky tiny thin strip off of this. I think in this case, maybe enough. And then I'd like to use something of that color in the middle, and I'm thinking of more of a layering effect in the middle. And I may want to do 2 strips. That may be too much though. So I'm thinking maybe just a single strip is good enough. So I have this other set of dies, and I'm thinking maybe cutting the purple background and then doing maybe an orange heart, something to that effect. And so what I might do is go off and cut this piece and get set up to use. So this is just the Sidekick. I've shown this before. It's just a little version of the die cut machine, the Big Shot that I always use. I keep it on my desk when I'm in a hurry and I've got strips like this kicking around. I can dig through this container that I just keep some dies in there, that either words or embellishments, little shapes, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go off and get set up to do, I'll just cut it on camera, but I'll do all the setup off. So I will be back. Okay, I'm back. And so what I did was I just cut another small band just in case I wanted to do, you know, the double lines. I haven't decided on that yet. And then I cut off a strip with the purpley color. And then I also found this. I believe this actually came with the Sidekick. There might have been like stamp sentiments. I can't remember if it came with a Sidekick or it was something else. But I haven't really used this because I've got other heart ones. But this is kind of cute, and I was thinking I don't know whether that would look kind of cool. Sorry, should have done this part. Maybe like over that line, and again, not have the second line. So if I should have enough to cut both pieces. So let's go ahead and cut this one this way. And so this is the same as the Big Shot, it's just littler. And I don't have it actually. There's a lever on the side that suctions it down. It works really well. I love that feature of it, but I don't have it suctioned completely down. And so there's that. So I'm thinking something along the lines of that. And then I had this piece left over from cutting something else, and that goes well enough. I mean, it's a little bit brighter, but let's see what we got. I think I kind of like that heart that was a little wonky. Maybe I'll do it like right there. And again, run it through. You know, I'm going to suction this down. Just makes it quicker. And we could do it one of two ways. Get the strips out of the way. So we could either do just the single heart, or we could do the open heart. Or actually, you know what might be cool is to have the middle heart be the darker orange, or the orange, and then that, I mean, I might cut that again in the purple. And then I think I'm going to cut this too. So let's see if I could do all of that together without having to stop. Here's my little heart. Oops. Sorry. Trying to actually, we wanted the inside. Where's my pokey tool? So here's my pokey tool. So let's take a look at what we have. Come on. So I was thinking something like that, where it's almost like it's embossed. And then the heart maybe in the middle. And then here's the thicker band that I cut going across the top. Let's see what this looks like. Actually, there's another little heart. Maybe that can be threaded through. Nope, I don't like that. I probably would do it where that line doesn't go through the heart, I think. That may be too much. That all may be too much, so I don't like that. I'm still not sure about that. And maybe I just want that. Or so this takes a little bit of time. Not quite the So I kind of like that combination. I'm just not sure of that color. And I really think I need that big blob. I don't know if there's a smaller blob. I don't think there is. So what I'm trying to do, if you remember, is that word love was backwards. So I'm trying to kind of camouflage that. I might be able to... I don't love this. So what I'm hesitating is I don't love this piece. So I'm wondering if I could either do, you know, like 3 hearts going across, or if I can find a bigger heart, and maybe I want it in the purple. So again, you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to stay within the color scheme that I've got. And that's why I did that scrap piece of paper, so that I could cut different things out and then kind of play around with it. So that's kind of my process when I'm trying to save something that I'm not particularly crazy about. I do love this. I love this shape. It's kind of amorphous, but you can still tell that it scrolls. I love the color combination. I kind of like these hints of what was there before showing through. It's now just trying to, camouflage the boo-boos, and then kind of bring it all together. So I'm going to go off and play for a little bit, and when I decide what I want to do with it, I will be back. Okay, I am back, and what I did was I just cut a bunch of different pieces. They won't go to waste, because what I do is I keep a running few of these plastic they're made to hold 4x6 photos, and it comes in a big case. And so I try to organize every few months or so and go through if I've got any just piles of things, and partition them out into different containers like this of like things. Right now this is just, it's kind of my holding tank. So it's just got a bunch of different things in them, but they will get organized either by color or shape. I do the same thing for my backgrounds. I think I've mentioned this before. If I have, say, a card and a sentiment, or a card and a shape, or something that I'm considering putting together, I have one of these that's just filled with those, what I call pairs. And so when I'm really under the gun, I can just go through those and quickly be like, okay, yeah, that one works. Add a sentiment, and hopefully even have one done, and then move on. So cutting extra things is not a bad idea, because then you'll have a stash of it. And then I also have, I showed you in another video, and I'm trying to see if I've got it sitting around here. Oh, I do. So this is, it's a bigger container. They don't make these anymore, which is really distressing. It's a Stufftainer by Stampendous. And I use these for bigger things. So like these are pre-cut card bases. I have a bunch of these that I organize by color for embellishments. And so some of those cutouts might end up in the embellishment piles, but there's also things like pieces of fabric, or yarn, or ribbon, or 3D embellishments. And again, it's all color coordinated, so that again, when I'm looking for things to go on top of a card front, I can, and I know what color I'm looking for, I can look through that stash. So I do have piles around my studio. It is a mess, but like I said, every so often I do try to go through those piles and partition them out so they're more organized, and then when in a crunch, it's easier for me to figure out what I want to do. So back to this. What I did here was I did like the line up on the top. And so I just laid this out on a piece of white cardstock and tacked it down with tape. I don't know if you can see the tape. So it's just tacked down because it was kind of flopping all over. And then when I was playing around with the hearts, everything was moving and it was annoying. So this way I can kind of get a feel. I can take this one off, lift it up and decide, do I like the line? Do I not like the line? I'm actually am leaning towards using the bottom line. It's a little bit thinner. I might move it up a little bit so that there's kind of equidistant. But then what I decided, I did like the two hearts in the middle. And even though some of that backwards word is showing through, you really can't tell. It just looks like the rest of it where there's some background hint of an image going on. And so what I ultimately decided that I wanted at the top are just layered over the line these three little hearts. And they are very finicky. So just kind of go with it. Something to that effect. And those would just be glued on top of the line. And then on the bottom, I kind of wanted to mirror onto the other side. And so my options are, again, I could do one, or actually two. So I try to keep things in odd numbers. That's one of the design principles, is odd numbers are more pleasing to the eye. So in this instance, 3 up here, 2 down here is 5. So that's still an odd, even though that's, an even. Within the whole scope of the layout, I think it still works. So that is an option, or I could do the absolute mirror and add the third. Which is also kind of nice. Or I could ditch the small hearts and go with a single larger heart that mirrors that orange one. That one at first was the way that I was going to go, but once I had everything in place, so doing the tacking down of the lines so you really could get a vision of what it was going to look like, I decided ultimately I did not like that. So that goes in my pile for a future use. And so right now I'm kind of thinking I might go with just the 2 hearts on the bottom. A little bit of visual interest. And it does mirror what's going up on top, but just is slightly different. So again, something along that line. And again, considering this was going to be a throwaway piece, I really like what's going on with the color. I managed to cover over the one part that I did not like, or actually 2 parts, just with some die cuts in the same color. So hopefully you take away something from at least this one. I'm still working on the other one, but this one, at least you can see that, having a stash of embellishments is a good thing. Having a stash of things that you can make embellishments with is the second best thing. And then if you are going to be doing this where you're going to be trying to you know, do things in quicker order, having mop-up papers that match the colors that you're using is a really good thing. So I think this is the way that I'm going to go with this piece. I'll glue it all down and it will be ready to go. So I will be back with the original piece. That one I do not have as much hope for. So when it's dry, I will be back. Okay, so, so this piece is, it's mostly dry. I had gone back in and added just a little bit more of this Distress Oxide and spun sugar to try and lighten it up a bit more. And that is helping to some degree, but I still, whatever. It's okay, but it's still not great. And again, I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that this may be a throwaway. But I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to try and bring in some diluted white paint to see if I can lighten that up just a hair more and see if I'll like that better. I do want to add some spritzes over the top, so but I'm going to wait on that until I do this part. So I'm just using Distress paint, Picket Fence. It's a little bit wetter than some of the other paints, so I'm just mixing. I'll try and move it into camera view. And actually, I still had some pink on there, so let me clean that brush. Add a little more paint in the camera view. Add a little bit of water. And so it's pretty soupy right now. So I'm just gonna go in and paint over, and that's picking up the distress, which was what I was afraid of. So I'm not sure this is actually going to help do what I wanted. I can try and float it in rather than painting it, but I think it's still going to pick up all that pink that's in there, and it's still not going to be as contrasty as I would like. I'm really kind of bummed because that middle this section here, it's got a lot of cool crackling going on. So there's texture all throughout this piece, but I just wrecked it. And sometimes that happens. Worst comes to worse, I can punch things out of it and have some textured die cuts. So I'll go off and finish adding the white, and when that is all done and dry, I will be back. Okay, so I'm back. I'm getting ready to toss this piece. I had gone back over the top with Distress Oxide spray, just kind of painted in. Well, I think I first sprayed it. I've done so many things to this thing, and now I've forgotten. But if you're following along, you know what I've done up until now. What I did off camera is I went in first with Distress Oxide spray and spun sugar in the middle. And I was afraid, and that's exactly what happened, that there was so much ink in there that it colored the Distress Oxide spray. And then I tried adding a little bit of watered down Distress paint, and the same thing happened. So I was aggravated, put it aside, and then I was playing around with this Picket Fence, can't read that, paper splatter watercolor. I hadn't used it yet, and so I was just kind of trying to figure out that there really were no directions. So it comes with this like a dropper. And I was like, do you hit it and bang it, and that's how you get the splatters? And then, so anyway, I was trying that, and I had this off to the side, and so it got splattered. But I quickly tried to wipe it up, but I'm noticing, and normally like a pearl paint, I feel, doesn't cover very well, but this looks like it might cover. So I'm going to try one more thing, and I'm thinking, I don't know how, it does seem kind of thick. So what I might do is just put a little bit in, and then if I can find my paintbrush kicking around, try and paint some of that over and see if that both whitens and shines up that middle section. And maybe I would like that better. And then if I can, I might have to just put a puddle here and paint normally. And then if I can figure out the spatter situation, kind of spatter the background. So I'm going to go off and do that, and we'll see what happens when I'm finished. Okay, so I started trying to paint the paper splatter watercolor in, and it was really kind of blotchy. I didn't like it. So I have a damp paper towel, and what I did was I just kind of laid it into the indentations of that middle section, and then I go in with my damp paper towel and I just kind of pat it so that some of it's getting lifted up, but some of that white shimmer is staying behind. So that is kind of doing what I wanted it to, where it adds just a hint of shimmer and a little bit of white. And so that middle section now stands out against the background. And so I am going to let that continue to dry, and I'm going to figure out the splatter situation, and then I think I'm going to splatter the background, see what it looks like, and call it a day. So I will be back. Okay, so I still am not sure of the official way of using this paint splatter watercolor, but what I did was I just put some down on my background, spritzed it with water, dipped my paintbrush in, and then spattered. But when I went in with my paintbrush, I had just a hint of color in it, and so I mean, now it's kind of obliterated. So that was the first one. I was just trying to use the applicator to spatter, and it's very thick, and it just blobbed. Then there's some more of the white, but I can't find it now. There was a hint of, maybe it was that one. I had some color in it. And so there was just a hint of color instead of the white pearl. So then what I did was I spritzed some Distress Spray Stain in Crackling Campfire, dipped my brush in, put some of the pearl down, spritz with water, and so now I have this kind of soupy mix of colored pearl, and then dipped my brush in it and just banged it against something. And so the first couple of hits are going to be the bigger splatters, and then it will get finer and finer. So I mean, again, I don't know if that is the right way to do it, but it's kind of an interesting look, and especially if you then clean your brush and use a different color, you can get different colored pearl spatters. So I think I'm probably going to do it in straight white, but maybe I'll put some color in on the piece that I'm working on. So I'm going to clean up and then try this on that piece that's driving me crazy. I will be back. So I am back, and I'm just gonna take a little drop of the spatter paint. Doesn't seem like you need a ton. And then I watered it down because it's very thick and gloppy. And then that might be too much water, but we'll give it a shot. And then dip my paintbrush in and just, yeah, I think that's too much water. So I'm just gonna start over. Paint. I'll just dip my brush in the watered, and that's probably a little bit better. And then you can use basically anything. I was using my water brush, my water bottle. You can use another paintbrush, and that still is not showing up. When I was doing it before, I actually had some color in it, so, and I'm trying not to get it all over my phone. So there we go. That's a little bit better. And so when it's watered down, you get a much finer spray, which is kind of what I was looking for, at least at this point. Again, I'm still not sure I'm gonna keep this piece. And so I'm just going to do a little more white, and then I might try to pull a color in. I'm trying not to get my fingers wet, otherwise I would dip my fingers in and do the splatter that way. You can see it was splattering more down there. Yeah, so that's just a hint of splatter. So I might try to pull in, let's go for broke and try it. So this is Wilted Violet, and just in the spray stain, not the Distress. I could do some more Distress Oxide spritzes if I wanted. That I would just do with my finger. So again, I'm going to mix in the color. I probably need a little bit more of the pearl. A little bit of color, a little bit of water. Mix it all together. I have so much color going on here that it's barely registering. I might be better off with the Distress Oxide itself, or even some water drippage. That I'm not so sure of. Sigh. I'm not sure. Well, I might have to call it a day on this one. I will let it dry and make my final determination, but I might have lost this battle. When it's dry, I will be back. Okay, I am back, and I've let everything dry, and I still hate it. So probably what I'll do is I will just use the textured part to cut things out of, like, especially hearts because of the colors. and then I'll have some textured little pieces. But at this point, I mean, it looks okay, but it doesn't look great, and so I would not use this as a card front. But just one more thing I thought maybe I would try is some alcohol ink. So I have this alloy. It's like liquid metal almost. And so I thought maybe that would do something. I mean, I have a million other things I could probably try, but I'm kind of really getting sick of this. So I figured this one would be the easiest. So I probably shouldn't drop it in like I just did, but see if I can move it around. Might be able to use a paintbrush. Here's the paintbrush I have been using. It don't seem to move with the paintbrush. Actually, it's kind of looking cool because it's picking up some of the texture that's underneath. And it is staying in the indentations. Oh, almost looks like it's foiled. So I'm just pulling off. There's just a little pool of it on the bottle, so I'm just kind of pulling off from there. Okay, that actually is not looking bad. So I'm going to go off and finish, and when I'm finished painting, I will be back. Okay, I am back, and actually it's not looking so bad. What I did here was I just mixed some of the alcohol ink with some alcohol to thin it, and I'm just doing a little bit of splatter just to kind of tie in that background. Probably needs a little more alcohol before it dries completely. So this stuff dries very quickly, so you have to work fast. So, all right, that doesn't look bad. It certainly looks better than any of the other stuff I've tried. So, I mean, we've been through lots of iterations with this. Distress oxide sprays, the Dylusions ink, the mica spray stains, the paint, the splatter watercolor. None of that seemed to help. So it really was the Tim Holtz alloy alcohol ink. So this color is Foundry. It's the silver color. That seemed to work the best to bring up the contrast and at least make the card look better than it was when it started. So I would say that one is a possibility of using. And then this one's still drying. I just glued everything down, so obviously I'll either trim these. What I might do is just kind of fold them behind just for more security, but I like the way that one came out as well. So I don't want to put this down because I still have the alcohol ink. So those were the two pieces that we started with. Let's see, there we go. Started with pieces that were toss-aways and definitely fixed this one. And I kind of feel like I might have fixed that one. So anyway, hopefully this gives you some ideas of things you can do with toss-aways, and we'll see you next time. And just a quick tip, if you haven't used alcohol ink with a paintbrush before, you can clean it. So this is just a bottle of the rubbing alcohol, and I just put a puddle, clean out my brush, and then I can use the rest of it with just even a paper towel and clean up my workspace as well. So thanks once again for joining me. See you next time.